Consider the challenge companies, especially startups, have in making an impact with public relations and marketing. Efficient and effective results like lead generation and the immediacy of social media in today's, albeit tomorrow's, future innovation economy. Greetings, everyone, and welcome from the Technology Association of Georgia. This is Tech Talk, October 6, 2015. I'm your host, Frank Baia. Just how do you make your story really work, to impact the bottom line when everything seems the same? The answer is simple. Be different. But you ask, how? On this edition of Tech Talk, navigating the media landscape in the innovation economy and how storytelling expertise in everything from corporate video storyboarding to branding and messaging to white papers and bylines across a spectrum of media platforms may be the difference your app, product, or service needs to be, well, different. Up to the Tech Talk industry-leading content expert and content director at Trevelino, Keller, Public Relations and Digital Marketing, Tanner Latham. In startup mode or challenged by how to start up that next quarter's constantly increasing projection, this is an inside look on how you and your company can break through the information overload and make your story one that leads. We Tech Talk navigating the media landscape with a former print, digital, and radio journalist, and most recently a reporter for NPR, one of the industry's top storyteller creators and strategists, content director at Trevelino Keller, Tanner Latham. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Tanner, welcome to GlobalSpeak.
Thank you, Frank, for having me today.
I think if there's anyone in our listening audience, and usually there's a large number of startups or people that are thinking about startups, this really may be an informative opportunity for them to gain some insight from what I think is one of the leading professional firms that are involved in, I think, a very important, I wouldn't say niche, but certainly emphasis, and that's on the business or the talent of storytelling. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about things in general. Obviously, the organization has been highly touted as very successful in public relations, also in marketing to a degree, but I understand you guys now are getting heavily in digital marketing. Talk a little bit about that and talk about what you do.
Sure. Yeah, we've recently brought on some staff members who are dedicated solely to digital marketing. In the past, as a public relations agency, we really, we would handle media relations and creating sales collateral pieces, things like that for our clients, and making sure our client's story got out there. And obviously, as the world has moved faster, we realized the importance of digital marketing. More and more we were being asked by our clients to come up with digital marketing campaigns, create things such as e-blasts to send out to try to generate leads. And so we were able to focus solely on that. And so our person who is on staff really takes a look at not only the best practices of sending out an e-blast, for example, but she can also really take a great look at your website, making sure that all of your search has been optimized, making sure that everything from your content to your images is set up in a way that will bring leads in through your website.
So we've gone from traditional media, obviously print, broadcast, maybe outdoor and that kind of thing. Lead generation was barely that, was an opportunity maybe to get some brand recognition, to do cold calling or something to that degree. Of course, now we've moved into data and moved into analytics, and now we have predictive and prescriptive analytics.
Right. We've
got all kinds of business automation. What you're saying in terms of, say, a public relations firm used to being storytellers and getting the message of their client out in terms of traditional press. Now it's a case, what is traditional media, and how do you go about doing that? So tell us a little bit about, you mentioned the approach, but maybe get into detail how you go about doing it.
Sure, yeah. And first of all, I would actually say that at the end of the day, the core is still storytelling. Yes, the mediums have changed drastically in the past 5 years, much less going back even longer. But a great story is a great story, and whether it's told in a more traditional way with the traditional terms, or we take the latest some of the latest techniques that we're incorporating, as you mentioned, bringing in data analytics and really trying to hone our audience to be as specific as possible. We still have to be able to tell a story that is clear, that is informative, but is also engaging and remains engaging from the beginning of that story to the end. And with media these days, and the media landscape as evolutionary as it is, a story can be an image, a story can be a tweet, a story can be fill in the next hot social media piece. Stories can fall into all of those particular platforms, and so we're evolving along with the media landscape. And our counterparts, and we actually think of the media as our counterparts because for a long time there was always an us and them set up there. But the media relies on us as much as we rely on them. We take a lot of pride in the kind of relationships that we generate with people who are traditional writers, as well as online writers, as well as people who specialize more in digital media. And that relationship that we generate with them it's back and forth. They really do rely on us to supply reliable and interesting story ideas, and it's the onus is on us to make sure that we're giving the media those good story ideas. We target our pitches to make sure that it's not just we want the media to know that we're looking out for them. We're not just trying to blast out news about a particular client. We're putting the news in a specific context.
Now, one of the things that we have a opportunity to do here at Tech Talk is we don't deal just in a vertical, a specific segment of technology. We deal horizontally in every aspect, whether it's customer relations, internet security, CRM, a whole number of other things now that have come about, including sales automation. I guess where I'm headed is a lot of times we end up talking a lot about clouds and SaaS and really a lot about the same thing, only different in terms of what their technology capabilities are in terms of relating to or servicing a client. I guess where I'm headed is, how do you come up with a new story? How do you drive the uniqueness in terms of establishing a unique selling point when so many things, so many technologies are relatively similar, or at least to the consumer?
No, it's a really great question. I think that as we're creating the messages that we do for the clients, specifically our technology clients, we try to use a really straightforward method, and that is to essentially establishing where the client is within the context. And you're exactly right. There are countless different forms out there that a consumer or a B2B audience they're being bombarded with that, and
well, the
question:
challenge
how do you distinguish it?
The challenge is trust. That so much is hyperbole and so much is making promises that you don't. One of the things I always enjoy about Steve Jobs, he said, people don't know what they want until they see it.
Right.
And so when we're seeing it as an entrepreneur, as a first-generation business owner, even as a CTO or CIO, we get so much information burying us with so many selling propositions. Again, you were about to say how you go into telling this story. How do you differentiate when you've got all those messages coming at me?
Well, it's I think being honest is important. You use the word hyperbole, and we hate that. It sounds like it's counterintuitive from a public relations and marketing agency to stay away from hyperbole, but we're in the business of really establishing credibility. And so when we are telling our clients stories, what we're wanting to put out there is what's honest about our client. And we really take we put a lot of effort into drilling down to what those differentiators are that our clients have within whatever industry that they're serving. And so it's beyond just trying to say this is the best, this is the latest, this is the strongest. We try to be as specific as possible. But what I was also about to talk about as well was that we have to determine the problem and the solution, and our clients have to be able to do that for their audience. If it's in a room full of investors, or if it's the literal consumer or the literal B2B audience that they're going after, they've got to be able to convince them that they know what the problem is. They truly, truly understand that problem, and they know that problem from all sides. And then they present a very compelling solution to that problem. And so we work with our clients a great deal in putting that part of the story together, because it's that's usually the beginning of any meeting, be it a sales meeting or an investor pitch meeting. You've got to establish what the context is and establish what the problem is, and then really how you're solving it. Not just to say that we're solving it, but really giving legitimate points to why that solution is better.
Well, I can remember a cliche that said something like, you're either going to save me money or make me money. Now, what are you here for? I'm thinking that I know how much you guys are successfully achieving so many good things with startups, but it would seem like what you're talking about would be the hardest thing to do with a startup. Tell us a little bit about that. How do you deal with representing startups?
Sure, it is. It is a difficult thing, and that is, it's because of all the positive characteristics that startups have. And one of the reasons that we work with startups a lot is because we enjoy the high energy. We enjoy being able to move fast, and we enjoy and appreciate and respect the need to pivot when that needs to happen. That nature of a startup is a double-edged sword. It can bring great success, but when a startup is trying to tell its own story, all of those things, the high energy, the ability to pivot, the fast-moving pace, all of those things can work against it as well from a public relations and a marketing and a storytelling standpoint. Because someone who is an entrepreneur, especially a technology entrepreneur, is going to be completely immersed in whatever that technology is. They're going to be immersed in whatever their business is. And it's the funniest thing, but it makes a lot of sense when you really think about it. But that can be the hardest thing that an entrepreneur, a startup can do is to really tell its own story. Because every single day, that startup is in the middle of all the minutia of running, of trying to succeed, of trying to get a foothold, and it's so easy to forget that there's a whole audience of people out there. If they're the target audience or maybe an ancillary audience, there's a whole audience of people out there who really just first need to understand what the startup does, why it exists, why it's gonna, as you said, why it's either gonna make me money or save me money. And we just love that. And personally, that's one of the most fulfilling things that I do in my job. I've got a background as a journalist. I did that for 15 years, and it was so much fun to be in the field with a subject, listening to them talk about what they did. If it could have been a politician, it could have been an educator, a small business owner. I covered all kinds of those stories. And when I could truly interview that person and really get to the heart of what it is that they believed or what it is that made them successful, and then turn around and retell that in a way that could be understood very clearly and in an interesting manner. That's why I'm in it. That's what I do, and that's the talent that I've got. I'm a horrible coder, when it comes to websites, but I can really sit down and pull the story out of someone and then relay it in a way that makes the most sense.
Well, you don't need duplication of the same talent in an organization. Sometimes it's the classic yin-yang as far as left brain and right brain is concerned. One of the things that we again constantly talk about here, we'll jokingly say something is so 20 minutes ago. In a world of such rapid, forget about change now, because I think we're entering into the innovation economy where things are, not to use hyperbole, but phantasmagoric. They're not even dynamic or fluid anymore.
Right.
How do you deal with elevator presentations and elevator mentality and hearing sales pitches when you're trying to, I guess, develop the story? You mentioned a story could be a tweet, but certainly it's part of an overall strategy, isn't it? Isn't it something where you're, in a sense, building that story?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And in a sense of an elevator pitch, it really is. One of the things that we talk a lot about with our clients, if it's an elevator pitch or if it's some kind of a way that they're trying to position themselves in the market, is we really find that analogies just are timeless, and no matter what the medium is. The person who is out there who is being bombarded with all of this media and all of these messages, if they can relate your company to something that they are already extremely familiar with, then you've already won half of the battle. You put yourself in a context that that they completely understand. One of those analogies that's frankly overused is, there's everybody out there is attempting to be the Uber of fill in the blank. Uber has been wildly successful and has become a cultural phenomenon, and people regardless of industry understand what Uber is, and so we hear that a lot and we see that a lot, and I think that there's still some mileage in that because it still is, it's still dragging headlines everywhere that it goes.
The last couple of weeks, though, I've been hearing the term unicorn, and all of a sudden we're seeing pushback in the terms of the speed of all of this innovation driving new business startups that are getting outrageous valuations, and again, things don't stay too. That's what I'm so challenged by or impressed by of what you do, because as much as you are obviously right where the trenches are, the trenches kind of morph and move and change direction, and I think sometimes the enemy is a friend and sometimes the friend's an enemy.
Right.
Maybe an overstate. Listen, we're quickly running out of time, as we often do in a good interview, a good discussion, but before I go, I think our audience would be remiss if we don't bring up a little bit about something that you've taken this whole issue to a whole other level. You're developing platforms and programs aimed at startups, even tech entrepreneurs. Maybe go into a little bit about that as we close.
Sure. Yeah, we've put together a platform that begins with what we call Startopia, utopia for startups, and what that is it's an ecosystem of information for startups, and it builds on the directory, the angel list directory, for example, that so many startups are extremely familiar with, and they've done a great job in putting themselves out there. So we build on that. So Startopia has not only a directory of startups from all over the country, but we've also brought in influencers and experts and service providers that all focus on startups. And so it is a way that those influencers and experts and service providers can connect with startups and vice versa. And we grew that platform into what we now do, which is a weekly newsletter called the Startup Takeaway. And it is a very fast, quick, and clever collection of the latest, hottest news in startups. We'll take a subject, solar energy, for example, and we'll pull out the most interesting things that are happening right now in solar energy. So that's the startup takeaway, and it's a part of the Startopia database. And right now it's an e-blast and a blog. We're also developing what we're calling the Startopia Exchange, which is very similar to Odesk and UpCouncil, if you're familiar with those sites. And
yes.
Basically what that does is we are establishing a platform where a startup, let's say a startup needs a website designed or a logo designed, or they need to get some legal advice, for example. They can come to the Startopia Exchange and they can post that need on there, log in, post the need, and then our experts, our collection of experts that have been vetted, we worked with them, we've gotten great referrals on them, bid on those projects, and so there we can connect the startup with the service providers directly. So that's the main thing is Startopia, and it's at start-opia.com for any other information on that. But that's something we've been really excited about in the last year, and it's just continuing to evolve.
Well, as we close, not to make it a blatant sales pitch, if I'm a startup and I'm interested in getting some more information about how you deal with clients and how can I get some advice from you, how would I go about doing that? And then repeat the startup publication again, the URL.
No problem. Yeah, so we would be happy to talk to you. A lot of times what we do is, if you're a startup, we ask that you come and meet us. We've got an office over on the west side in the King Plow Arts Building, which is just off of Howell Mill Road. And we'd ask you to come by and sit down with us so that you can tell us what you're looking for, and we can tell you what we can provide. We've got all of our services at TrevelinoKeller.com, TrevelinoKeller.com. We also have an in-house creative team that's web designers and writers and graphic designers and videographers. That's all under the brand Groovy Studios, so that's all part of us too. You can find that at TrevelinoKeller.com as well. And then finally, as you asked, from a startup standpoint specifically, we've got our Startopia platform, so that is start-opia.com.
Well, Tanner, thank you so much for taking time out of what is obviously an extremely busy schedule to join us with some really great insights and obviously some opportunities for us to get connected to the information and leadership that you're providing. But thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your busy schedule to join us today on Tech Talk.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Frank. Thank you.